Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I am going to do a TBR for two authors who I want to, basically the two authors that I have projects for, which are Charles Dickens and Stephen King. In other words, I just want to read, I'm trying to read as many of their books as possible. Although there are some Stephen King books I'm unsure of if I would like them or not. He is an author who writes a wide variety of genres, although he mainly focuses on horror. So I'm gonna show you. So I want to show you guys the books, my TBR for these authors. Okay, put this down because it's hard to lift it. Okay. Okay, let's put this here. Have them very much organized. Okay, so first, first I'm gonna show you the books by the authors that I'm going to reread. So with Dickens, it's only two at the moment, and that is these two, Oliver Twist and Great Expectations. So in case you don't know, Oliver Twist is about an orphan boy who gets mixed up with a bunch of thieves, and then he's taken in by a rich man who he raised, but then the thieves won't let him go because he's worried they'll expose them. So this, of course, is so much more than what, like, the Disney animal movie is, or the musical, although I haven't seen the musical, so I don't know. But I think a lot of people can agree that there's so much more to the story than what is given in the media, the adaptations. But that's, of course, that's typical of adaptations. They're either decent adaptations or they're terrible adaptations. There's no... there might be some adaptations that are leaning towards actually being really good, but they're never 100%. They're never perfect adaptations, which I think is okay. Nothing's wrong with that. It's when they're really bad that, people will be up in arms. So I don't hate this book as much as a lot of people do, this Dickens novel, but I did get Oliver as the main character is annoying as heck and too angelic of a figure, but I feel like was just typical of Dickens, that a lot of his children, especially his children characters, were very angelic figures and perfect and pure if they were a main character. Although I think Nell is worse, is more annoying than Oliver. And I like this story more. I did like the Old Curiosity Shop. First of all, the idea of the Old Curiosity Shop is really cool. And I did, despite how much I did not like Nell, got on my nerves as the main character. She was like too goody. I still like Oliver. I still thought that the relationship between her and her grandfather was really sweet. I did like that. So, which, by the way, that's my update on Dickens. My Dickens reading project is that I have listened to, last year, around autumn time, I started to read the book physically of the Old Curiosity Shop, but then my book fell apart. I don't know if that's my fault or just the one I bought from Thrift Books was not good. It's not a good one because it's a risk of buying a used bookstore you might not get. But basically the whole book started coming out of its binding, or chunks of it. Not the whole book, but chunks of it. And it was very frustrating. It was hard to read because I was trying to keep it in there. So finally, towards that last chunk of the book, I just gave up and was like, let me see if I can get it for cheap on audiobook. And I found it for a really good, really cheap, for $1.99 or 99 cents. I think it was $1.99. So I just got it on audiobook. and I did start reading this last year. My reread of this last year. But I actually kind of have a soft spot for this one. You know, and I feel like when I read the first time was just not good timing because it was when we were in Florida. And there was just too many distractions. I was going to meet Terry halfway through the week. She was going to come join us at our little, at our timeshare. And then I was sharing my room with my grandma, and, you know, we were on vacation, so it was, like, kind of a hard book to be reading at a time like that. And I feel like classics are not always the best when you're on vacation. Like, that kind of vacation. I mean, I think if you're staying with a relative's house, you might have a better chance. But if you're going to someplace like the beach or, you know, a theme park or, like, you know, then maybe not so much. I mean, now, maybe Europe might be a good place to, you know, because, you know, this takes place in England. So maybe reading some of those older books that are European set stories might be, you know, reading, if you visit Europe, that might be a great place to read. That might actually be a great place to read them. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to reread this. Like I said, started last year. Back in the spring, I think I started rereading this. So, and I did consider that possibility reading this in the winter time, like this time of year, like, but during, like, close to Christmas. I don't know why, but I associate Dickens with that. I mean, I guess because he's known for a lot of short Christmas stories, including the infamous A Christmas Carol, so I always associate him with reading his books during Christmas time. But, even though I never do it. So I attempted, and, you know, I definitely was able to take it in more and enjoy it more than what I've read so far of my reread. But I want to continue that this year. And then the other one is Great Expectations, which I like this cover. I really like the cover of the edition I bought with the, these are the Modern Library editions. This is the, these are both Modern Library editions, actually, but this is a more, I don't know really what's the difference between, like, these, other than the obvious covers, but is there, like, are these like special or just an updated version of the Modern Library, like updated from this? Because these are kind of boring. I mean, unless you like the artwork that happens to be on there, like, because they always have some kind of artwork on there, like a painting or drawing or something. If you like that, then it's not. But if you don't like it, then it could kind of be boring, you know. So maybe this is just an update of these ones. But I do really like this. Like, the watercolor image is really pretty. This is the story of Pip, which, again, he's another one of Dickens' main characters that people don't really like and find annoying, but it's for different reasons than for Oliver. Oliver is just a goody-goody, like, too good, and then Pip is just an idiot oftentimes and is very arrogant and, you know, kind of mean to people. But that's kind of part of what happens to him in the story. Like, Pip is just, his parents are dead. He lives with his sister and her husband, and his sister treats him like shit. And then one day he inherits some money and becomes rich. And he leaves all of his friends behind. And just becomes an arrogant dick. And it's how money changes you and can alter your perspective, you know, can change you, and not necessarily for the better. It can make you a different person. And I remember really liking this, and this is one of his best female characters. Some of his best female characters are in this book, like Miss the infamous Miss Havisham, who was jilted at the altar and, you know, is still haunted by that memory. And then you have little Stella, who is a bitch, but she definitely provides an interesting foil for our Pip. Has him wrapped around her little finger. And I remember enjoying this one a little bit more than this one. I've been wanting to reread it for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But maybe the goal is to reread it this year. I mean, and these are some of his shorter works. Although I think, other than not counting his short stories, like out of all his novels, I think the shortest one is probably Hard Times, which looks at how factory work can, how factory work doesn't exactly can change things for the worse and take away our creativity and our imagination and make us, how it can be bad for society. I didn't love that one as much. I mean, I think it was, intriguing themes and messages and but I don't know. That one didn't capture me as much as some of his other works that I've read so far. So these are the Dickens I'm gonna reread, and then let's talk about the Stephen Kings I'm gonna reread. Now these ones, it's been a lot more longer since I've read these books. These three. So first you have, I started rereading this series last year, at the end of last year. I squeezed in the first two books, November and December. Or maybe both of them in November. And that is the Dark Tower series. I've been meaning to reread it because it's been so long. And I felt like at the time it was not good timing because I was just discovering Stephen King and getting into more adult books and getting into more denser books at the time. And I admit, back then I didn't love the series. I was interested and I wanted to keep going with it. It got my attention, but I still wasn't 100% invested in it. I was probably 50% invested in it, maybe less than that. But I am definitely closer to 100% invested in it this time around. I like the first two books. This is basically about this gunslinger guy, Roland. He has been hunting the man in black in the infamous tower. And along the way, he jumps through all these different dimensions, including ours. He's from, a world that has moved on. And along the way, he takes on these two people from our world. This young man that is addicted to heroin, or three people actually. And this woman that has multiple personality. And then this little boy, this young, teenage boy, it forms a little bit of an attachment to Roland, that Roland is not so sure if it's a good idea for this kid to get attached to him. And they go through all these different worlds and dimensions, and while they help him find this tower, even though they don't think it's a good idea, and it puts their lives in danger. So I read the first two books. The Gunslinger, which introduces Roland's character. We are introduced to his world, which is very Western style world. I think that's one of the things that people don't love about that is the Western, and that's kind of what I at first didn't like about it, because I wasn't into the whole Western, John Wayne type stuff. But I've since changed my opinion, and I did really enjoy it. It's also a fast read because it's the shortest book in the series. It's probably one of his shortest books over all of his books, unless you count the short stories. And then I was able to get through the second book, The Drawing of Three, really quickly as well. His writing style is very easy reading, I mean, the only thing that might bother people is not the writing style itself, but the vulgarity in it. He doesn't shy away from vulgar language. There is some racism in there. Drops a lot of cursing, like the F-bomb. He doesn't, like I said, he doesn't shy away from anything, and he's very gritty and all, but the real world and the gritty, dirty details of people's lives and the way they think. Even if, So this is the third book, and I remember really loving this book out of the first three books. I did start reading book 4, Wizard and Glass, but then I kind of stopped for a long time, and that's part of the reason why I'm rereading it from the beginning, because it's been so long since I picked it up. And I do believe book 4 is kind of a story within a story, so you don't necessarily need to read book 4, but it's part of the series, so obviously I'm going to read it. But this is book 3, and I remember this was my favorite so far of the first 3 books. Mainly because of this guy, this train on the cover. He's a omniscient, is it omniscient? There's a word for that. When an object, not inanimate, but omniscient, maybe? I don't know. I have to look it up. I don't remember. There's a word for a being that has a life force that's alive. But this train on the cover, and for some reason I keep thinking of Thomas the Tank Engine when I think about the train, like an evil version of Thomas. If you guys grew up in the 90s, Shining Time Station, and if you have kids today, it's now Thomas and Friends, and mostly focuses on the train. There's no Shining, the station is in there, but it's not like focused on the real world and stuff. It's more focused on the trains and the imaginary world, the world of the trains and stuff. Which I love, that's one of my favorite tropes, is when you have stories that take, authors that take things that are for kids and make them have kind of a viciousness to them, like a scariness to them. Because, like, a lot of people interpret some of the nursery rhymes and fairy tales as having a bit of a spookiness or a creepy undertone. Like how, Ringing Around the Rosie is really talking about the Black Plague, and there's a few other song nursery rhymes and stuff that kind of people think, oh, it's a criticism of, the government at the time, the royal family, and some of these have some, like I said, creepy undertones. I'm always been a big fan of that whole idea. The idea of something having, like, something that's supposed to be meant for kids having this sinisterness to it. I think that's why I kind of, as much as, like, I like the idea of clowns scaring me, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But from what I remember, our companions end up on a train this guy's train, and he has a very average little boy name. The train, like something like Ben or Tom or something like that. And the train comes alive, and it kind of is like Gollum, where it likes riddles and playing games and stuff. And there's this ominous to the train, and it's really all I remember. But I remember really enjoying and really like that aspect. So I want to read this, and I keep thinking about, like, I'll be going on I keep thinking, oh, maybe I should pick it up now, but then I think about some of the other books that I haven't picked up, that I haven't already read once before. So next is Salem's Lot. I read this. I had a mass market copy. Well, I also have a mass market copy of the Dark Tower series too. All my copies of that, but then that's the other reason I'm buying new copies of Stephen King's work and rereading them. So this is Stephen King's take on vampires. This is What If We Found Dracula in Suburbia? How would that be? Which I guess that's also what Fright Night is about. Like the idea of Dracula being suburbia. No, it's not Dracula. It's a different vampire. So our main character in this one is a writer who decides to come back to his childhood hometown, where something happened to him as a little boy, where he goes to this mysterious house, the Marston house, that is where some horrible things happened there, and so he, as a kid, he believed it was haunted. And it turns out, in the present day, some mysterious, creepy guy bought it, and it might be a vampire that bought it. And slowly the town starts to be changed. And the part that unnerved me the first time I read this was what happened with the priest. If you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. That is the part that freaked me out the most. That is the part I remember from when I watched the adaptation, the more recent adaptation from the 2000s with Rob Lowe. That part unnerves me, creeps me out the most, scares me the most. And I'm sure you can figure out why, even, even if you're someone who's an atheist, I'm sure you can understand why that part would be a little unnerving. But I've been wanting to reread this book. Sorry, I'm doing something on my computer while I'm talking to you guys. And I actually watched last year. I watched a vlog of someone. I think it was Jessie May reads. Not Jessie May as in from like the fantasy, and she runs the book club, but I think she also has the name Jessie May as well, the one I'm talking about. I think. I know her first name is Jessie. Jessie Reads or something. She did a vlog while reading this book, and it reminded me that I want to reread it. So, and then the last Stephen King reread is this big boy. So another one that, as you can see, I did start rereading it already. And this is a 1,000-page book. This is a long one, and what I've been wanting to do with it is doing a video where I compare the book to the adaptations. I've done a video where I compare the two adaptations and which one I personally enjoyed more, which one I think it did it better. But I wanted to do a, read the book and then compare the adaptations. But as you can see, it's a huge ass book. And it's a big boy. So I still would like to do that, but I have to read the book and finish it first. I have my Edward Scissorhands bookmark. I have to remember that I have that, because I recently bought a bookmark that I already had, and I totally forgot that I had it already. But yes, so I still want to do that video, but I still gotta reread this book. Now, I don't know if I'll finish this year. It would require a big commitment on my part. But, well, first things first, I'm going to try to get my Goodreads goal, because I made it low this year, and I'm close to it, so I want to get that, and then I can relax a little bit more and just focus on reading books this size, since I will have already met my goal. Okay, so those are my rereads. Let's talk about the books I have not read by these authors that I want to read this year. So first we have Stephen King. Let's talk Stephen King again. So we have Bag of Bones, and I remember watching the adaptation with Pierce Brosnan as the main character. This is about this author's wife died, and he is being haunted by her. He has not moved on from her, and he goes to the lake house that they bought and decides to try to work there to write his next book. And he meets a mother, and I don't know if she has a daughter or a son. He meets this woman and her child, and something sinister is going on, I believe, with that whole situation, and he doesn't know if it's the child's grandfather, or if there is really a ghost involved, and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's what it's about. And I know it's about the guy haunted by his wife that died. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But this one isn't as long, so this is why I'm thinking about reading this one. I thought about reading this one next, but then I started The Stand a couple years back in 2019 or 18. I cannot remember. And I'm going to pick it up again. But it's one of his longer books, which let me go ahead and show you. The Stand. I think this is a tie-in, not to the most recent adaptations that's coming up because it hasn't come out yet, but a tie-in to the original TV miniseries that came out. But this is about an epidemic, a plague. a virus that killed half the population. So pretty much like what's going on right now. And except for the fact that there are these two people. There's this woman who's a healer, and then there's this other guy. And the woman that's a healer is, she's considered the good guy, and then the other guy is the bad guy, and they're both gaining followers to support them, and it's all about basically that. All these people picking sides, and, I'm sure there's going to be a battle that's going to happen between good versus evil, and epic proportions, although I have heard that people were not happy with the ending of this book. I'm still going to read it, though, because Stephen King is known for people not being happy with his endings. In fact, they kind of make fun of that in the most recent It Chapter 2 movie adaptation. They have Bill's character as a writer, which I think Stephen King, almost in all his books, he always has a writer when there's a, and I think the main character in The Mist might have been a writer. And actually, no, I think he was a sketcher. He used to draw. I forget things like those kind of details within the year. But so Bill Denbrough is a writer, and one of people's criticisms of him is he's not good at writing endings. And that's basically kind of making fun of Stephen King. But Stephen King was involved in the project, so I'm sure it was his idea to do that, to put that in there. But yeah, so here's the thing. I'm caught between reading both these books at the same time, and it's like, I feel like this is an author that I can get away with reading 2 Stephen King books at the same time. But then it's like, but then also it's like, he's an author that writes some very intense stories, and like could potentially, become exhausted even if the writing is not dense and easy to read. The plots themselves can be very dense and very tense stories, and there's, like I said, he doesn't shy away from vulgarity. So, but that's what happens when I start talking about these books and videos, then all of a sudden I'm looking at my copies of the books, and I'm like, I want to open these right now and read them now. Okay, and then we have, this is one of his short story collections, and that's Skeleton Crew. And this one I've read. I read The Mist and Here There Be Tigers. So I've only read 2 stories from this. Here There Be Tigers was short, so it was one of these things where I figured, let me just go ahead and squeeze it in. That one I got was kind of disappointing. But, so I divvied it up in sections. I wrote in pencil a line separating the stories into sections. So, I have Cain rose up, which I'm wondering if that has anything to do with, if that's a biblical reference, because, if you know the Bible story, Cain is the guy that killed his brother. Spoiler alert, killed his brother Abel. And they are the sons of Adam and Eve. And ever since then, there's always, and I feel like most authors kind of explore that whole idea of 2 brothers, one good, one bad. So I'm wondering if Cain rose up has anything to do with that story. And then Mrs. Todd Shortcut, they referenced that, I think that one in the back description, and then the Jaunt. And then we have the next section I established was the Wedding Gig, Paranoid Enchant, The Raft, War Processor of Gods, which that'd be interesting to read. And then The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands. Curious what that would be about. Beach World. Okay, then we have the next. I created the next. This is where I established the next section, which is Reaper's Image, Nona, for Owen. And then we have Survivor's Type, Uncle Otto's Truck, Morning Deliveries, it's Milkman #1. And then we have the next section, which is Big Wheels, A Tale of Legend Laundry Game, that's Milkman #2. And then we have Grammar, The Ballad of Flexible Bullet, The Reach. And I think that's it, because the last thing says notes. And obviously that's not a story. So I have... So The Monkey, Cane Rose Up, Miss Todd Shortcuts, and The John. I will read that. Maybe I'll be able to squeeze one of those in February. But I'll read the last... If I'm able to get The Monkey in February, I can read the last 3 in March. But I feel like that separating them into sections helps. Like, that helped with when I was reading... the short stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I DNF the rest of that because those stories just got repetitive. I mean, I appreciate Fitzgerald's writing style. I still love his writing style, but he kind of writes a lot of the same things. Which I'm sure you could say that about a lot of these 2 authors as well. But for me, it just got tiresome, and it helps that, like, at least with King, that a lot of us have the supernatural element, and he writes not just he writes also like thrillers, and he writes dramas, exploring grief and stuff like that. But yeah, so I want to read at least some of the stories from this collection. I don't know if I'll get through it all, but I want to read at least some of them. I know for a lot of people, they're like, well, they're short stories, so you should be able to get through them all, but nope. I'm not that kind of reader. So there's that one. And then the last one, you have the last one, which I did start as well, was Under the Dome. But again, this is another chunker. I don't know if it's as long as it is, but it's pretty long. Like, King and Dickens are authors that write some long, chunky books, which is fine. I mean, I think the more story, the better. But sometimes it can be, but you also have to be interested in the story itself. If the plot loses your interest, then that's not a good sign. Unless you're a character-driven reader. If you're a character-driven reader, the character's got to keep your interest. The characters don't keep your interest, and that's not a good sign for character readers. But this one is basically this town where this dome covers the whole town and keeps them, traps them in their town. They can't leave. And there was a recent mini-series about this, or series, and I think Haven, the TV show Haven, which is supposed to be like a Stephen King inspired show, also touches on the idea of a dome, of this one, because there is an episode where the whole town is covered by a dome, and it actually starts with a windsurfer getting cut in half when the dome falls on top of her. Cuts. I think it was a woman, and cuts her in half. Although I don't remember how it split her in half, because I imagine she was standing up. So would it split her in half here on top of her head? Like, eugh. Well, either way, it's But I think that episode was inspired by this. It's a good series, by the way. If you're a fan of Stephen King and have not checked out that series, it's an old series. It ended with I don't remember how many seasons, but there weren't that many. There might have been like 4 or 5. And it's Stephen King inspired. It starts with the Colorado Kid as the big mystery in the first one. And like, this is basically, Haven is a town where all these people they each have some kind of ability or gift or something supernatural. Like our main character's love interest can't feel anything except for when he touches her, which kind of has a little bit of romantic element. Although I preferred the other guy that was into her at the time. Although I'm happy that he does give a love interest later on in the series, the other guy. That may forgive them for going the typical route, at least in my opinion. And then it takes a very interesting turn that a very unique turn that I don't know if how other people. I would be curious how other people felt about it, but I liked the turn it took with our main character. I thought that was kind of interesting. Kind of was really cool. It's so hard not to say the word interesting. In the last video I filmed on my review of Plain Bad Heroines, I mentioned how I watched Powder Fiction and Plot talking about reviews. They did the reviews and ratings book tag, and they also they interviewed all these different people about, and someone did mention how a lot of reviewers use the word interesting a lot. And it's like, that doesn't say a lot. I mean, and now I think about it every time I use the word, but I don't know what other words to use. But so yeah, I attempted to read. So I started this one, obviously, but I didn't read a lot. It's so hard because I'm, deciding what to focus on next. But anyway, so there's that one as well. So now let's talk about all the Dickens books that I'm going to reread. There's not as many Dickens as there are Stephen King. Okay, so other than the two, the two I picked, the three I picked that I need to read. I'm kind of limited to, same with Stephen King, I'm limited to what my options are, because I don't have all their books for either author. So first, the book I had started reading was Our Mutual Friend. This was a thrift book purchase, by the way. So this is Katie from Books and Things' favorite Dickens novel, and that was part of my reason why I was like, I'm gonna check out this one, because it's her favorite. And so far it has my attention, but it's a slow read. Dickens is his writing style is very different from Stephen King, where it's very slow moving, and it will take you have to wait a little while to really get into the story. So it definitely is still holding my attention, but it's not. It wasn't enough to where I was able to put it aside, and I haven't picked it up. So I don't know. I should say that's the word I should replace interesting with the phrase holds my attention. That's what I'm going to do. That might be better. Although I don't know if it really is better. So I don't know, but here lies the problem though. Now all of a sudden I got this one and this is a really battered copy, obviously. Again, another thrift books purchase. This is Dombey and Son, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I might be more into this story. So it's like, and I feel like, do I give Our Mutual Friend some time or attempt to read it later and just jump into this one? And I'm someone who feels like I should read the book I've had the longest first, but then at the same time, but I want to read my new shiny new book that I just bought. I want to read that first, or in this case, the battered but new to me book. So yep, and herein lies the risk. I just hope it doesn't end up like with what is it called? The old curiosity shop where it starts coming out of its binding, which is, I did put some tape on the bottom here, on the edge on here. So yeah, I don't know what I should do. if I should just wait and dive into Our Mutual Friend, or should I go ahead and just start the one I'm more intrigued by at the moment. Although it's still a risk either way, because I need some quiet time where I can really dive into it and take some time. Like, it is a risk bringing this to certain places. Like, when I visit my sister, it's kind of hard for me to read a book like this. I still will attempt to bring books like this, but it's still a bit difficult because there's a lot of distractions. And if I'm, and when I'm in the car with my mom, then she likes listening to talk radio, and you guys know I do not like Dr. Laura, but my mom does. And it will just, so it's kind of hard, especially if it's just the two of us. I like when it's just because they'll focus on me, It's not, I don't like attention, but I like attention that I can control. So it's like, it's undecided. So basically this question is, but the main question is, do I continue with reading Our Mutual Friend, or just go ahead and jump to this, because at the moment, this got my attention more. And then the last one I grabbed that I need to is, and this is the adaptation tie-in, and that is out. I didn't tell you what these two were about. First of all, this one, Our Mutual Friend, is that this guy dies in the beginning of the book, and there's his will to determine where his money will go, and it's supposedly going to the servants who worked for him, but then all these other people have an opinion on it, and they are supposed to inherit the money as well, I think. And it's kind of how the big tangle of a mess. It kind of similar plot to Bleak House, because Bleak House also has involved a will and who the inheritance goes to. I think it's it's kind of the same thing as this one. While Dombey and Son is, Mr. Dombey has a son, but he also has a daughter, and he doesn't think very highly of his daughter, and he focuses more, and he does not want to give the business to his daughter, even though that's the only child he has. And it's all about his sexism against her and everything, and the struggles of women back then for not being taken seriously. So like I said, I'm kind of more intrigued by this plot. Is more engaged, has got my attention more. But then, like I said, I feel like I had already started this one, so I feel like I should give, but I didn't get very far into it, so I could always take out the bookmark for now and just start over with it one day, come back to it, or leave the bookmark in and just not come back to it. Although, going by the plot of Dombey and Son, the bookmark actually would fit that one. The bookmark I'm using for this one, it's, I think it's a Little Women quote, actually. Yeah, Louisa May Alcott, and it looks like that thing that when you get a book from the library, they have that little piece of paper they stick in there, and the librarian will stamp it when you check out the book or return it. So it looks like that. It has the dates on the back, and the quote is, "She is too fond of books, and it has turned her brain." I imagine that is a quote from what's the grandmother's name? I cannot think of the grandmother. I cannot remember her name. But I know it sounds like a quote from her, like maybe the original things that she says about Joe, and how when she's pointing out that how Amy's all of her granddaughters are they're lost, like Joe is a lost cause, and Meg is married poor, and Beth, Sally probably won't. But anyway, yeah, that's probably, so I don't know. But yeah, I think going by what this Zombie and Son is about, it might actually fit that one more. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I've already started this one. I should continue with it and just keep going with it. And it does take a while to get into his stories. But again, Zombie and Son has my attention more. And then the last one that I haven't read is that I'm, like I said, is Little Dorrit. And in this one, the father is this girl and her father, and he is in debtor's prison, so she decides to go live with him while he's in debtor's prison. And I think there's a bit of a romance involved. And this, like I said, is the tie-in to the Masterpiece Theater PBS adaptation. That one, the BBC are known for. They're the ones that make adaptations for a lot of these classics, British classics. And which this was before she started doing more work, because Claire Foy, she's the actress who plays Queen Elizabeth in the first couple seasons of The Crown, I believe. So it's interesting. You look, again, I'm using the word interesting. It's always, I look back and watch some of these old PBS or BBC mini series, and then you find out there are British actors are now super, very successful or famous or, at least well known, doing other stuff, and you get to be like, oh, I watched them in their first role, before they became, known for this role that made them more known universally. But yeah, so again, I'm having the problem of I'm looking at these books and talking about what they're about, and it's like, oh, I want to pick them up and read them now. But anyway, I feel like I need to read maybe some science fiction first, and I need to check out historical fiction, and then read classic as well, because I'm trying to cover all my genre bases, or at least the genres that I like, because there's some genres I will not touch, or there's some that I'm just, they're not bad, and I might read it on occasion, but it's not my preference. I'm talking romance, but anyway, so that is my Stephen King and Charles Dickens projects. Those are the ones that are my TBR for those. Like I said, some rereads, and then we have someone in trying to decide the ones that I want to read next. So I hope you guys like this video. Be sure to give a thumbs up if you did, and click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And I hope you are staying healthy and happy and enjoying your reading. Bye!